one thing that I also want your listeners to is to find their superpower, because I think a lot of us look at our weaknesses and we're trying to identify all these weaknesses. But have you taken a moment to step back and say, what is my superpower and how am I using it? Because everyone else thinks that their superpower, everyone else has it. Well, no, there's something about you, and it's not cheesy, it's reality, that you do really well. Do you know that, and are you using it?
Great day, everyone. Welcome back to Unexpectedly Successful, to one more episode of showcasing amazing businesswomen who have been right where you are right now, and they'll share how they got to where they are for you to take your own piece and run with it. Today, we have Dr. Rana Salman. She is the CEO and founder of Salman Consulting, which is a sales consulting firm helping organizations improve their sales practices to get them to results. Not just to get them better, but to get them to results. Rana, Dr. Salman, she is most proud about the impact she has in the sales teams, but more importantly, the impact that she has in the individual that then builds them to then transform those organizations. So welcome, Rana. It is super excited to have you in this show, and I'm excited to hear all the insights about you and your business.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Griselda. Thank you for having me, and I cannot wait to delve into some of experiences and life lessons.
Awesome. All right, Rana. The first question is, can you please tell me who Rana is for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Rana is a human being that is hungry, humble, kind, hardworking, will be disruptive, and will ask questions to help us create solutions that will help us get results.
Okay, so kind, hard worker, disruptor. I love that. Do you see disruption as a positive, as a negative, as a neutral? What is your take on that one?
I think depending on what you're trying to accomplish, right? If you're trying to accomplish something for the goodness of the team and being disruptive and being the one that stands up and say, have we thought of that? And also, Griselda, the way we communicate it, right? Because everyone should be able to voice their opinion in a safe environment. And as a disruptor, our job is to ask questions that causes people to say, I haven't thought of that. Or ask the question, why not? That's something I learned early on in my career, that the question, why not, is so powerful, because when I ask it and someone tells me, because we've done it this way, that's not enough. As a seller, that's not enough. That's when we go, well, what does that mean? Let's unpack it. Just because we've done it that way doesn't mean it's the right way to do it in this time, during this time. So I think being a disruptor is a good thing. You got to align it to the goal of what you're trying to do. And also the way you disrupt is also important. You don't need to be a bully about it. It's the way, the intent behind it as well.
Awesome. I love it. The why not question. And it is often a question that makes us reflect, right? And even if we don't fully acknowledge it at that moment, is something that will come back to us like, really, why not? And especially when we talk about changing environments and perspectives, that is a very powerful question. I agree. So, Rana, I know you are a powerhouse. For the audience, Rana finished her master's and PhD before she was 30. She became part of corporate America. She was successful in doing that. Then one day, she launched her own consulting. So tell us about that journey, Rana.
I think I come from a family of immigrants and business owners that were in the service industry. And so, Griselda, I saw the greatness of owning your business, but I also saw how hard it is to own a business. And so I stayed away from it in the beginning. Early on in my career, I wanted to go to school. I wanted to have this corporate job. I wanted to have my weekends off. And then as I started growing in my career, I also wanted impact, purpose, autonomy, And I want to get things done. I think a lot of high performers, we want to get things done. And I recognize that in a large corporate environment, there's a lot of hurdles and bureaucracies because they have to put systems in place. And I wanted to do it. I wanted to go fast, and I also wanted to make an impact. And that's when I had a career coach where he asked me questions about what is that next phase of my career is going to look like. And he went through an exercise, and I recognized my superpowers as we were talking through, and also some of my areas of strength and areas of weaknesses. And as a result of these discussions, I recognize, okay, it's time for me to go on my own. I have the experience, I've had the lessons, and of course, I'm going to learn a lot more lessons as you open your business. But I was ready. I felt ready, and so that's kind of the journey that I took. Was it easy? Absolutely not. I mean, all of your listeners, if they have a business, they know it's not easy because you're letting go of your predictable revenue that you get a paycheck every month. You're getting you're letting go of that security blanket, and now you're on your own, and now it's your name on it. So everything matters.
How interesting, Rana. You said that as the daughter of immigrants into this country, and entrepreneurs, which is something that a lot of immigrants we just need to do as an immigrant myself, right? Because we create our own possibilities. That's what I love about business ownerships, that we create our own possibilities and pathways there. But it's interesting that you mentioned that you stayed away from that intentionally, and then that you were in this process of being coached. It was like digging deeper into why you needed to take your next step as a business owner. Can you walk us through that moment? Like, how is it that in your conscious efforts, you were walking away, and then through coaching, actually that was what was the result of your next?
Yeah, I think, as my conscious effort was, I was doing really good in sales, and I was making great income, and I was traveling, and I was getting to do things that I wanted to do. And I wasn't unhappy. I was doing great. And so when I had that coach, I was in my, when you're in your mid 30s and you're trying to figure out what is next for me. And I asked around, and I got this coach, and it was this objective party. It's not your partner or your husband that really cares about you, or your mom that loves you and thinks you're the best. It's someone that really is objective, and they have the science and the tools to ask you questions that gets you to think. And as he was asking me these questions, and also about the fears, what am I afraid of if going on my own, right? I wanted autonomy, I wanted efficiency, I knew what I'm good at, and I knew that I can help. So what was my fear? And my fear was failure. I built my name, I built a brand for many, many years. And now I have to go on my own. And so that was what was holding me back, is failure, and seeing how hard it is to own a business. And I had to also separate myself, that I am me, and I can create my possibility in terms of how I want my business to be. And so it was a process, right? But the minute I recognized that, that's when it switched. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, the possibilities. And being realistic too, Griselda, right? Like the first year, you got to get into it knowing that you're not going to make the money that you used to make, that there is going to be times when you're totally alone, you're building, right? And it takes a lot of grit, and you got to surround yourself with a support system, because at the end of the day, when you want to give up, you want someone that is next to you, that loves you, that sees your strength, to say, hey, let's step back a little bit. You're just having these moments. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if you're going through change, to have someone outside looking in. Even though I do coaching to other people, I needed that someone else.
Walk us through that moment of you deciding this is a time.
Yeah. I think that the once I decided, then I needed to put my business hat on. And that's when I recognized, okay, I need to have a strategy in place. And even if it was not, it's still new, but I needed to make sure that I have the right things in place as a start, as a goal. And I also wanted to meet with other entrepreneurs. And so I started going on LinkedIn, and I've identified people in my city that were entrepreneurs that have their own business. And I reached out to them, and people are so kind. Like, we're afraid to ask for help, but people want to share. They want to help others because they've been helped. And so I've met with I've met with a person that she was a CEO of her company, took her company from very little, and then she sold it. And she's now almost like a person that I look up to, and we have a regular coffee. But this one was a person, when I reached out to her, I said, look, I opened my business. I have questions. I researched you. I showed her that I did my due diligence, and I would love to have a cup of coffee. And I thought, oh, is this person going to even answer me? Guess what? She answered.
Wow.
And we sat there, and the best advice she told me is stay laser focused. Do not try to be everything for everyone. And she holds me accountable to that. So when I meet with her, and she's pretty busy, but whenever I meet with her, she always says, how are you staying focused? Because if you want to be good at something, you got to stay focused instead of spreading ourselves too thin, right? Like, yes, we can work really hard, but there's also a law of diminishing return at the end. So where do you focus your strength and your efforts? So that's where what kind of the process that I did. I did my qualitative research, like Griselda, you and I know, and then I took what I learned, and then I sat there and I created almost like a strategic plan. It was 1 year. I identified what am I selling? Like, what is my product? What is my solution? Who are my target audience? And I also held myself accountable to a number, right? Like, just like I was in sales, I had a goal. I had a number that I needed to achieve. Now, that number was also lower than I expected, that I usually do, because I also wanted to make sure that I'm also giving myself hope, right? Like, this is about building, this is about acquiring, this is about creating. And I created a website. I mean, all of it was very scrappy because I didn't have capital. But I also knew that I needed to, if someone is Googling Salman Consulting, they need to find who we are, right? There's building blocks that you need to be put in place. So after I did that strategy, I also started building my brand on LinkedIn. And this is really important for everyone that is entrepreneur. You got to go, I call it where your tribe is, where your customers is. Some of them may be on Instagram. Some of them may be on LinkedIn. Some of them may be on Facebook. Be very clear where your buyers are at, your prospects, and then start showing up, start building that familiarity. And even if you're not known, it's about consistency. You start showing up with things that are relevant to them. And then you start building what I call your network and your tribe. And you're starting to learn more about them. So that's data coming in, but they also start learning more about you. And you start building a brand, associating it with what your purpose and what your mission is. So those were some of the things that I did. And one of the best things that I did is I decided that, hey, I'm known for my hard work. I'm known for being a seller. I was doing it for a long time. I was doing sales consulting in other companies, but I needed to build my brand. And to do that, I asked amazing sales leaders in our industry if I can interview them and start writing a blog about what they believe are the best practices. And that helped me in also and I was very honest with them. I was like, this will help us both because I need also to increase my brand recognition. And I also will write the article and will feature you. And so that gave me also the opportunity to get noticed by their network. So then you start associating yourself with folks that are really also good at what they do. So it's putting these building blocks, and also every 6 months or look back at your strategy. Because what I found, if you look at my first year, I was going in all these directions, and I had to bring it back and focus. And I had to also get rid of some of these solutions or packages that it wasn't my sweet spot, that I was just trying to be creative. And so it's also the lessons that are learned through the process.
Awesome. So you gave us a really good blueprint here for the audience listening. So the number one, you said, I'm ready. I need to create a strategy. So first thing, you started to create your own network with a different type of people that you needed surrounding you for that new season. So you went to LinkedIn, did your research, reached out, and then started connecting with those people. Number one, for my audience, create a new network for this new season of your life. Number two, create a strategic plan. And on this one, strategic planning sounds a little bit scary, but basically what you did is you created a goal of where you wanted to be and then reversed engineer on how you were planning to get there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like when you think about strategic planning, you look at all the business books, you're right, sounds complex, but you start with the goal and you say, how am I going to get there? And you have to get there. You have to be clear about who your target audience is. You have to be clear about what you're selling, the packaging. And through my interviews with these amazing entrepreneurs, one of the things that they kept saying, hey, Rana, package your solution, package your product. If you're selling a coaching package, what does that include, right? And so that includes your solutions and that strategic plan and that plan, the pricing model of how you're going to price it, the marketing or the building of the brand, how are you going to build it? And you don't need a big plan, a big marketing plan, but just holding yourself accountable that I am going to update my LinkedIn profile to be relevant to my buyers. I am going to start showing up 3 times on LinkedIn or wherever the platform that your buyers are. I'm going to engage with my buyers. So those are kind of like holding yourself accountable and having some metrics around that. And then also, what are I did a quick SWOT analysis because I wanted to know, and SWOT is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, trying to figure out, well, what is Salman Consulting strength? What is our competitive differentiator? But also, what is our weaknesses? What is our internal weaknesses? And also, what are things that are not in our control, the threats that we need to be aware of, right? Like we weren't aware COVID is going to happen. So how do you address such a threat? And then there's also the opportunities that are out there that we can also take advantage of. And so that was kind of the basis of that plan. And even if you don't have answers, right, you know now that, wow, I need to be looking out for these things.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as you say, maybe if even if we don't have answers, once we know that we have a gap, we recognize it, and our brains are amazing, right? Just the creativity that comes around, and then you start seeing potential solutions that you hadn't paid attention before because you didn't need those solutions. And so just bringing the awareness to, I need this, helps us finding those solutions and filling in the gaps. So that's really awesome. So number one, create your network that you need. Number two, strategic planning. Number three, the strategic plan has to be linked to a brand wherever your tribe is. And then you talked about, you didn't have capital, so you did it the bootstrapping, the scrappy way, right? And when I work with clients, my ladies here, they say, I need money. Can you give us your insights on that statement, Rana?
Great question. So yeah, we do need, you need a little bit of money, but at the end of the day.
Is that a stopper for anyone aspiring to have their own business?
So to be honest, you got to make sure you can feed your family, right? Yes, so that is something where I had that, right? I knew that my kids are not gonna starve if I don't make it the first 6 months because I'm building. So anyone who's also getting into it, also, especially if you are a woman with a family or a man with a family, if you're young in your 20s, if you were one of my kids, they can live on nothing. They can live on ramen noodles, right? Yes. But when you have a family, it's a little different. So going in, knowing that, hey, I need to make sure that my kids are okay. And I was fortunate that my husband and I, we were okay. We could survive with me not making an income the first 6 months or so. Now, to create the company, do you need a lot of money? In the United States, you don't. There's a lot of opportunities where you can build your own company by LLC, getting an LLC, having a website. You can build your own website. It takes more time. So now you're giving up time. And time is money, right? And I had to learn that, sometimes you have to hire people because they can do it efficiently while you are selling and making money. And so, but when you start your business, you can absolutely create your own website if you don't have the capital. And then it's the prospecting and the hustle. The hustle becomes really important, where now all your time should be spent thinking, all I need is one client. All I need, and that was something when my coach said that. He said, all you need is one client. You have sold so much in your life. Do you not think you can get one client? And I was like, of course I can.
Easy peasy.
A turning point. And that's how we need to think of it. It's the small blocks, right? It's the small wins that we get. And once you get that first client, you do an amazing job. You deliver, you delight them, you take care of them. And guess what? People want to work with people they trust and that they know that they have the good intent and motives and they are competent. These people will take you with them. And that's how businesses start growing. It's almost like a viral, like a virus. It starts spreading and your name starts spreading. And so when you think, do you need to have a lot of money? You don't. You need to make sure if you have a family, that the first year you may not make the money that you used to make. But putting a business together in the beginning, in my experience, did not, because I'm in the services industry, right?
Yes.
I provide services and my brains are what my products are. Now I package them in a way that they're productized, but I don't have software. I'm not creating a software. That's where it starts, where you start needing that capital.
Yes. So, Rana, I am gonna leverage on what you just said. Now, your superpower is in your brain, right? In your expertise, in your experience, in your knowledge. And for my audience, a lot of these women are there, right? They're experts in their field. They know what they're doing. They do the extra at all times as an employee, and then. You talked about, can we get to that first sale? And when we break it down to that, it's like, I mean, it may be challenging, but it's not impossible, right? It's doable. And then you talked about one key element to you creating this or getting to your first sale is knowing your ideal client. And Rana is an expert in sales, so I'm going to leverage on her expertise. Can you walk us through your own process from the sales perspective for you to get to your ideal client? Because one of the issues that I hear working with my clients is anybody can use my services or my product. And that's a little bit of a, if you don't focus, going back to your earlier comment, right? We need to be focused on that ideal client. So can you walk us through a strategy to get us there?
Yeah. So I want your listeners to look back at their wins and identify, I call it the buyer profile and buyer persona. So buyer profile is the typical organizations where you see that they have a problem that you can solve, right? What is that type of company? It could be a small businesses, local businesses in our community. It could be startups with X amount of capital that they have, an X amount of employee. It could be a large organizations in specific industries. So you got to start there. You got to identify, well, what type of companies am I going after? Because different companies have different approaches. And also, you may not be offering them what they need. And so start with that type of companies. And then also within these companies, who are the buyer personas? And those are the titles of the people that you're going after. Where do they sit in the organization? What is their role and responsibility? How do you help them solve the problem? What is their initiatives? What are their problems where you can say, oh man, I can help them? And then you go on LinkedIn. And then if you have to invest in a tool, invest in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, because that's when you can create those lead lists. And that's where you can stay really focused, because that's when you can go, okay, type of company, size of company, location, titles. And then LinkedIn is going to spit up a list for you. And then you start saying, who am I? Am I connected to anyone in that list? Do I have someone in my network that knows them? Because the fastest way to get in front of someone is through referrals. right? And so I'm looking through my connections. I see, oh my God, Griselda, you are connected to this VP or SVP at this company. And if I know you really well, I'm going to reach out and say, Griselda, here's what I'll set up a call with you. If I haven't talked to you for a while, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. And I'm going to ask you if you can help me. And if you say yes, I'm going to make it as easy as possible on you to make that introduction, because I'm going to even craft the email for you and say, hey, I know you're super busy. Here's what you can use to introduce me. And then CC me on that email, and I will take it from there. And that's where you start becoming strategic in terms of connecting. Now, you may have thought, oh, I want to work with startups. And that's my buyer profile. That's the type of organization. Within these organizations, I'm going to work with the VP of HR or whatever. And then as you start, the lessons learned, as you start growing, you recognize, okay, what are the lessons learned? Maybe this is not the right buyer persona. Maybe this is not the right titles I'm going after. Maybe I should be going after the L&D leader versus someone else. So there's always also lessons. And that's what I want your listeners to know, that always be open-minded when you are creating a new company, because you're learning as you go. There's failures that happens along the way, and you got to make sure to take that in and to be open and to listen to what is said, but also what is unsaid. And that's things that I've learned along the way.
You talked about providing value, and then you also talked about social selling as a strategy. So tell us about what social selling is and how that is important for sales, and from your own perspective.
Absolutely. Social selling, and people define it different way. In its simplest form to me, it's using social media to research your existing customers and your prospects, to create and generate leads, to nurture existing relationships, to prepare for your sales calls so you can take an outside-in perspective, and also to build your brand and familiarize, and so you become a familiar face to your prospects. When you think about cold calling or cold email, I do believe they're important. And when you include social, when you start showing up on someone's feed and they're part of your buyer persona, and they keep seeing and they see value in what you're sharing, they're like, oh man, Griselda, you know what you're talking about. You shared some great points about what is relevant to me as your prospect. And you start nurturing these relationships, and you start showing up on their posts, and you add insights by commenting. And then a few months later or whatever, you see that they've done something in their organization, or they posted something that compelled you to reach out, to ask for a meeting. So you go to InMail and you reach out with a customized InMail. And now when they see your face and your name, they're like, oh yeah, I know, I've seen Griselda. She's not a stranger to me. She's more of a warm face. So there's an increased chance of them saying, yes, I want to meet with you. You're not cold. You're not a stranger to them, because you've already started adding value, and you've already started positioning yourself as someone that is relevant to them. We got to be relevant to our audience.
I love that. I love how you put into perspective how, even if it's distant and we don't know who is watching us, we're not the stranger. In some level, they already trust us. They already know who we are, and they already got some value from what we're talking about. And one of my mentors says, the best way to help someone is by helping them. And so just how do we start helping them, even
how
if
do
it's...
we start?
Yeah,
how do we start helping them, right? And the idea here is, when you're having a business, we want, of course, revenue and money. I mean, this is a business. It's not a hobby. It's a business.
Yes.
But to get there, you got to make sure that you are offering something that is helping someone, and that help is so valued that they're willing to pay for it. And that's where it's really important that you also know your value, right? And that you are looking at this as a business. Not just offering free solutions. Your time is money, and you've gone that far. You have experience, you have expertise. You need to make sure you're getting paid for it. Or if you're not getting paid for it, how is it going to help you in generating leads? There has to be a purpose and a reason.
Yes. Okay, on that question, one of the hardest things, even for myself, and I'm sure for my audience, is to say, you know, I'm adding X value to their lives. How do I set a price that reflects that value, and working on mindset that is like, oh my God, is it too much money? Or are they gonna be willing to pay for what I offer? All these questions that come to us from your own experience, Rana, as a business owner. How did you go about that? And knowing that you do add value and making sure that you do add value.
I think it's also important to be competitive in your pricing, right? So you also need to look at what is out there, what are, what is realistic, because if your price is so high and you're acting like, and you're focusing on selling value, people can see that as well. It's too much. Like I can't afford it. But when you sell value, it's about packaging your solution and aligning it to a business problem. And if you solve that business problem and think about it from an ROI perspective, what does that mean to the organization? And that's where your conversations should be. It shouldn't be about your products. It should always start with, okay, you have a high turnover rate, X, Y, and Z. How much does it cost for your turnover rate? They're going to give you that number, or, industry-wise, you can say, and usually it costs that much. Okay, what if we can reduce turnover rate by X amount? What if, and we can save that much? How would that impact your business? And people start thinking, whoa, that is almost could be millions of dollars. So then when you share your solution, you're aligning it to business outcomes, and it's going to be much less than than those ROI metrics, right?
Wow. I love that. I love that. You're not selling your product, you're selling the solution. And we go back to the introduction for you, because if we shift that perspective, then really it's an investment, and it's much less than what they would not have or be losing at that point.
Be losing, right? Now, one of the things that I wanted your listeners to know is that we're losing a lot to indecisions, because people are afraid, especially in times of uncertainty, to make decisions, to take those calculated risks. And so just what you said, Griselda, is very important. What are we losing if we don't take action, right? Because what ends up happening in the sales process, our deals get stuck and people are not making decisions. So how do we increase that sense of urgency, bring it back to that business problem, and talk about what happens if we don't take action? What are some of the scenarios that can happen if you don't take action and solve that problem?
Rana, I'm going to take a turn here, and I am going to ask you this very question. What would have happened if you had not taken that step into becoming a business owner?
Ooh, what would I have not? I think I would have found my way because I wanted to make an impact. If I wasn't opening, if I didn't have my business, I would have still be doing research and sales and working for organizations that have the same values that I do. So that's kind of where, but I don't envision now that I'm in it, I don't envision myself not having, going through that journey to get to it.
So it has the investment been worth the return?
Yes. Is it easy? No, it's not easy, because there are sacrifices, right? Like, so I work a lot and I love to work, and I'm working on weekends. I integrate life and work together. But would I do it any other way? Absolutely not. I love waking up and thinking, okay, what are we going to do today? We have these much customers we're going to talk to. How are we going to help them? And the conversations that you have with people also bring in ideas. And when you have that mentality of thinking in possibilities, I think it makes you see things in a different way.
Thinking in possibilities. Oh my God. So every conversation is a possibility.
Oh, it's a possibility, and it's a gift. It's a gift. When I sit with an executive, when I sit with a VP, when I sit with a sales rep, this is a gift that I have 30 minutes with them to not only help them, but also learn from them. And I tell you, the minute we start opening ourselves and listening to what is said and unsaid, that possibility comes in. A lot of my programs that I've created is based on really actively listening to people, what are their needs, what are their pains, and also what are they may not be seeing, that based on my conversation with them and based on my experience, I come back and say, whoa, okay, let's step back. Let me provide you things that I'm seeing, and let's bring all these worlds together.
I love it. I love it because as an expert, you may be seeing things that for you are easy, for you are obvious, but for the people on the other side who don't have your expertise, the knowledge and experience, it's not obvious to them, right? That's another moment of us recognizing our competitive advantage where we differentiate ourselves and continue to learn on what our strengths are. And that's exciting. That is
Yes.
exciting.
I think, Griselda, I know we're almost done, but one thing that I also want your listeners to is to find their superpower, because I think a lot of us look at our weaknesses and we're trying to identify all these weaknesses. But have you taken a moment to step back and say, what is my superpower and how am I using it? Because everyone else thinks that their superpower, everyone else has it. Well, no, there's something about you, and it's not cheesy, it's reality, that you do really well. Do you know that, and are you using it?
So how can my audience go about becoming clear about their superpower? Because I know we tend to say this is just normal. This is just something everybody does. So what would be an advice for my audience to look into that?
Yeah, so self-awareness is so critical. This is something, it's a gift and it's painful as well. But through self-awareness,
Yes.
we can do several things. One is if you don't have kind of the capital to do a formal 360 assessment and hire someone to coach you and to do all the actual full view, you can have a self-reflection, like sit in every day, think of your day and identify, have a self-reflection where you say, well, what went really well? What did I do really good? What were also areas of improvement? What were some areas that are blind spots for me that I need to improve on? And the more you do that, the more you recognize, okay, wow, I do this really well. I can get things done really quickly. I can connect the dots. I can, whatever that is. And couple that with really having a open conversations with people that know you at work, that know you at home, their partners, your customers, and ask them these questions as well. And then compare, because that's where blind spots also happen. Sometimes we may think we have a strength, and our people around us that we trust may be like, "Ooh, I don't think that is a strength," or we may think that this is a weakness, and they say, "Well, no, this is great at what you do," or they may say, "You're really good at this," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, but I thought everyone else is good at it as well." So that's kind of the scrappy way to do it. And the more formal way is, of course, to do a 360 assessment that is valid and reliable testing assessment. And then a coach comes in and reads it for you. And it really shows you your grades versus your score versus how others scored you on specific competencies in specific areas. And then you do a coaching plan around that.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally appreciate you bringing us to a do it yourself version of the 360, Rana. I mean, it makes sense, but I had not seen it in an advised way. So for my audience, for a 360 assessment, do it your own, do it yourself. You find the people who know you in different capacities. So family, friends, business partners, clients, etc. And then you start asking them questions. What am I really good at? What are our points of improvements, etc. And then you inventory all of that information. And then you start finding patterns. And I can put money, you are going to find patterns. It's so powerful to just hear what people can see on us that we may not be aware. So thank you so much for that, Rana. A couple of items, and you mentioned this in the previous part of the conversation, failures. And you told me that you wanted to talk about failures, failing fast and failing forward. Can you share on your own journey what this has been for you and how you've gone about it?
Yeah, failing is part of learning. It should not define you as your identity, because if you're not failing, you're not learning. Like if you come in and you think, hey, I'm going to create this business from one shot, I'm going to be successful at it. Look at other leaders. It's the people learn as they go. And so failing fast, meaning, okay, I failed. I didn't do a good job. I lost this deal. I'm going to take maybe 24 hours. This is my process, Griselda. I take 24 hours of grief, I call it. I really let it out. I go do my run. I'm a runner. So I run, I come back, I talk through it. I get my frustration out. I write out what happened. I talk about what could have been better. I debrief all that. But then there's a moment within 24 to 48 hours where I say, okay, now I got to move forward. Because if I keep looking back, it's going to stop me from going to that next chapter. So you fail fast, but then you move forward and you take those learnings with you. Is it painful? Absolutely, it's painful. Rejection and losing and failing is painful. There's studies that show us it's the same kind of, I guess, and I'm not a neuroscientist, the same kind of neural pathways that our way the brain processes pain is similar, physical pain. Rejection is the same type of processing happen when we get rejected.
Wow.
And to me in sales, we get rejected a lot. And that's also part of failing fast and failing forward and learning from it. And you also got to take care of yourself. Yes, I work a lot and I can tell you I can outwork a lot of people, but I also know that I will not miss my run every morning. That is something that is very important to my health, that is important to my mindset and to making sure that I'm taking care of myself and in turn my business and my customers. So those are these, you have to make sure that you have put in place also a support system, because at the end of the day, I think you have a question about moms as well, right? Like I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. I have 2 amazing boys. For me to do this, I have to have a support system of people in my life that can help me, with every component of it, right? And also knowing that we're not perfect. We're not perfect. As moms, we're not, and our kids don't expect us to be perfect. They don't want perfect moms. They want these moms that are working hard and hustling and winning and losing, because that's the real world. That's the real world. Go ahead.
And we're not perfect, but we're perfect for them, right? That's all they know. They're stuck with them.
and the funny thing for your audience, when I was getting my PhD, I didn't have time to read a lot of nursery rhymes for my kids. And so I would bring in my marketing books. And
I researched articles.
And I would read them as if I'm reading a rhyme. Until now, my kids, I recognize when I say a marketing term, there has like,
oh my God. So you were, oh my God, I love that strategy.
You integrate.
That you were exposing them early on to marketing sales. I was trying to finish my homework and be a mom. And I was like, oh my God, I can do both. It's in the tone. It's in the tone. So give us an example of something that you recall doing that, because I'm sure this is for the records.
What is it? I think all my Harvard Business Review articles, I think there was an article about managing authenticity that I probably read to them. I think Cotter's marketing, that the 22 law of immutable branding, if I remember right, that I remember 22, I was like, 1, 2.
Oh my God. I think you're onto something here, Rana. How to turn Harvard Business Review articles into children's books.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. And that's why it's always about also integrating, trying to integrate. You can't, the reality of it, when you're a business owner, that balance, it's not really real in the beginning. You got to be also realistic about what you can and cannot do. And the last thing that I would also tell your audience as moms, like recognize, yes, there are going to be sacrifices. Like I remember my kids' grade school, they would always have donuts at like 10 or 11 in the morning. I could never make that donut. I knew I'm not going to have that donut morning, but I also knew that was okay with me not being there. But there were things that were non-negotiable that I will be there for them. And that's when I would work around that. So if there's Spirit Teacher Conference, I was there. If there's a basketball game and I was in town, I was there. I had my laptop, but to them, mom was there.
Yes.
So that's where you got to pick, right? You got to pick what is your non-negotiable if you're a mom, and what are things that are really sacrifices that they're not a priority.
Yeah, prioritizing your time is definitely a key component because, yeah, you have to just manage the 24 hours you have in your business. That's amazing. And I love how flipping the articles, as it sounds silly, but you were also giving them knowledge. You were exposing them to things that are valuable in their lives. So being creative and innovative as a mother and as a student and as a now businesswoman, I'm sure they took lessons from that. So it's just part of the investment overall.
I think, yeah, I think your kids need to see. And I think COVID also helped our kids see what we do because they were right there. They were listening they were seeing that environment of hustle and hard work and losing and winning. I mean, I think COVID did a lot of, yes, it was devastating, but there was also something about it that brought families together and connected.
I agree. Okay. One very important question for this show, Rana. Were you expected to be successful?
So yes, I expected myself to be successful.
I love that answer.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think it was going to be easy because I came from very little. I came here and we didn't know the system, but I knew that my parents sacrificed a lot to get us here. I knew that they put everything they have to get us to this land of opportunities. And I knew that if I worked hard, that I will make it. Now, did I know that I'm going to end up in sales? I didn't. That was something where I was finishing my PhD and I needed to find a job. I needed to pay my debt. And I applied to a sales consulting firm. I got the job. And then quickly I went into sales and started learning the professional way of selling. But I really knew, and you got to believe in yourself, but it wasn't easy, right? Of course, I had times and moments where I felt, oh my God, I can't do it. I can't make it. I'm scared. I don't know. But that belief in my gut, I knew that I am worth it and I can do it. And it's going to take a lot of hard work. And I may be working twice as hard as everyone else, but I have that grit. So
I love it.
That's the honest answer. I wish I could tell you no. And
No. I mean, it was, you knew that you were going to become successful because you had other instances where you had just done the same. This was just a new adventure, right? And you've talked about the sacrifices and you've talked about the hard work and you've talked about the efforts that have taken from you. So it's not like easy peasy, but it's not impossible either.
It's not impossible. I think at the end of the day, we all can, if we want to, and we put our mind and efforts and hard work and to accomplish our goals. There's the opportunity cost. What does that mean?
Yes.
Right? What does it mean? You have to give something to get something. And if you're willing to give something to get that something, and you're willing to put the work and the discipline, and this is something, Griselda, that I think is also important. As business owners, you have to have perseverance, but you also have to have discipline because discipline helps you have structure, helps you have routine. And there are times when you're not motivated to do what you want to do as a business owner. But if you have that discipline in place where every morning I have in my calendar, this is blocked to what I do, then even if I'm not motivated, I'm disciplined that I need to get that done.
I love that. I love even when we don't feel like it, our discipline will get us through.
Absolutely.
And it's not a matter of whether or not I'm going to do it. It's just part of what I do. Non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Okay. And the reality of it also, Griselda, is that you may try it. And I said that to another person yesterday. I said, you may try being an entrepreneur and it's okay to say this is not for me. What you don't want is when you're on your, God forbid, on your deathbed and you say, what if? And that was kind of for me also the what if, because I didn't want to get in that time where I'm living in an environment where I can try and test things. And that's where you want to avoid the what ifs if we can.
Yes. We don't want to regret at the end of our lives that we did not do something we knew we needed to do. And with that, Rana, what would be one word you can give our audience of your business ownership journey? One word to summarize this.
Grit.
Grit. I love it. just do it.
Just that the belief that when you fail, it's a learning and you get back up. And I think a lot of immigrants have that because we learn it from our families, we learn it from our own experiences, that it's that grit of, okay, and I learned that from my dad. My dad has the amazing grit. No matter how much he falls, the man will get back up. And that's something that for me, that's definitely my journey grit.
So for my audience, Rana is also an author, and it's about the topic, yes, sales, essential sales. So tell us about that, Rana, and how my audience can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So last in June, I think June, a few months ago, I published my first book by McGraw-Hill, which is one of the top 3 publishers in the world. I'm very fortunate and humbled by that. And the book is called Sales Essentials. And Griselda, everything we talked about is included in this book plus more. And it's really about how do we sell? And it's the foundational and essentials. And any business owner, folks, you gotta be able to sell your product, your solution, and you gotta be able to influence a behavior. Because at the end of the day, I always say that if you're not selling, it becomes a hobby. And that's what you don't want. You want it to be a business. So you got to make money out of it. And to make money, we got to sell. And that's what Sales Essential is. It's going to give you kind of the tools and the building blocks to help you get that deal. And of course, LinkedIn, Rana Salman, connect with me and mention Griselda's podcast so I also can connect and relate to the conversation. And
awesome.
Please send me feedback and input. I want to learn from you all as well.
Awesome. I love it. And this is not an easy task. So congratulations, Dr. Salman, for your first book being published. And we look to the ones coming up next. Thank you again for your insights, for your lessons, for sharing your own journey from that experience of becoming a sales person. For all of our audience, we need to sell. We need to sell a brand. We need to sell our businesses. We need to sell our expertise. So go back and take notes of what Rana shared with us today. And I hope that we hear the successes from you implementing these strategies. Until next time, more to come.